got Dan Haussler on the latest episode of Cloud Interrupted, and Dan is our Chief Operating Officer. And Dan, why don't we start there? When did you join Stratum, and what employee number were you? Like 2 or 3? Like you were
Uh,
pretty early on, weren't you?
yeah, not that low, but probably under 10, right? Somewhere between 5 and 10. When I came on board, the company was definitely pretty small in size, less than 15 people. And it still had that startup feel, very much so. I mean, it was Aaron, Carrie, and Ryan, and a handful of engineers. I mean, uh, some are still here today. In fact, most are still here today. And you can kind of see they've started to form that bedrock. The ones who just grew in technical expertise and just ability kind of became cornerstones, and we've kind of scaled on top of that. But yeah, whenever I came here in a project management capacity because my background centered in project management, primarily in IT. So prior to this, at a managed service provider, doing
Mm-hmm.
professional services project management for them. And they were traditional, so they did what you would normally expect, install firewalls, build servers, do deployment of, full networks in Office and Workstation, everything, SharePoint, uh, Office 365, mail migration. That was a typical project for me. So coming here, I was a little bit unsure of, okay, it's a cloud-based company. How does that translate? Are they, you know, fully in the cloud? Is there any hardware? How do I understand this stuff? And so there's a learning curve there, but I guess what I discovered was they end up doing the stuff that kind of most interested me, in the sense
Mm-hmm.
that the technology, after working here for like 2 or 3 months, it was really readily apparent to me that, oh my God, like that last place I worked, it, I'm extremely grateful that I made this jump, because that ship is on an okay course, but it's not, the outlook for people doing traditional IT is not nearly as great as this. Like, I went from doing very traditional projects to doing projects on stuff that's pretty cutting edge stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever the technology itself on a weekly and monthly basis evolves, and you can see like, oh, brand new offering, whole new product. Like, I went from a typical project being end of life cycle firewalls needing to be, Cisco has a new firewall and you got to rotate out firewalls and put new ones in, like that. Okay, you could do that, and that's probably around to stay. But I went to this place and it was, oh no, AWS has a brand new service. Like, they have a whole new offering and it does this brand new thing. It's going to
Mm-hmm.
deliver content in a new way. And I got to soak all that in. If you love technology, this is like you're a kid in a candy store. And so I kind of was. And I came here as a project manager, but personally had an interest in technology. So the things that I wanted to bring were, obviously process, procedure, some type of repeatable way of doing projects and gaining an efficiency, and just to generally keep things on track. And
Mm-hmm.
there was a huge appetite for that here. That was probably the biggest relief. Is what I found was, it was almost like an abyss of, you could just fill it with as many good ideas, and people really, as long as they were sound and you weren't asking too much, they would let you kind of mold it to whatever you thought. I came in with a PMP, a new project management, and for the first month, I kind of, hey, how do y'all do this? How do you do that? How do you track budget? How do you track plans? How do you track project closures and charters and scopes of work? And I asked a lot of questions, and there were some answers, but there also were some, I don't know, or we don't really do that, or that's kind of handled by this. And I would just kind of offer ideas like, hey, when you close a project, do you ever get a signed acceptance from the customer that says project's delivered and get a satisfactory rating? And, well, no, but we should definitely do that. Yeah, okay, so I'll draft something up and bring it and lay it out, and y'all tell me what you think. And it was, a little tweak here or there, but by and large, they were happy that somebody was doing that. So that was the satisfaction in working at Stratum, was there's always been and still is this appetite for improvement,
Mm-hmm.
self-improvement, and what's the next maturity level that we need to hit, and where are we now? How do we get from here to there? And who has the best idea? There weren't strong egos to overcome. You didn't have to battle with your idea versus the way we always do things. And if you had a good technology that accomplished something, you could lay that out, and they're obviously they lean forward on technology. So if you had something that would handle budgeting automatically, please teach us how to use this. That was kind of what I noticed coming here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just been the best in getting my feet wet. But coming here, there was almost purely professional services and almost no managed services. So I got to see that full life cycle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I came here and there were, I'd say, skill stack of engineers was maybe 2 levels deep. It wasn't like super deep. It was um, very high architect level senior engineers and then mid level, but there weren't real basic junior level engineers. Like you think of your associate architect or AZ 103, there really wasn't that. It was like 200 and above type level of
Right.
engineer. And it was kind of boutique projects where we were doing things, but it was, hey, here's a migration project, scope it from scratch, understand the tools, have the engineer assigned, go through everything, and every time we were doing it, it was like cut from whole cloth. And so over time, professional services mature pretty quickly over the course of like 6 months or a year of just being here. Started adopting project plans, started adopting templated scopes of work, started adopting common practices around project management and just execution, make it repeatable every time.
Mm-hmm.
Use the same tool, don't have engineers have 3 ways of doing it. Have whoever's the senior most technical resource dictate, this is how we do migrations. We use this tool, and this process, and actually make that standardized and teach everybody how to do it that way. And believe it or not, you start talking the same language, a flavor of execution starts to develop, and then you start getting faster. And so professional services kind of took that arc over 6 months to a year, getting really, really good. And the idea of toying around with how do we continue to deliver for customers after we migrate them, right? Because that was a lot of what we did. It was either fresh deployment, greenfield, or migration. Customers would get into the cloud and then kind of look around, that like John Travolta gif that you've seen online where he's just looking around. And that was kind of what they would do. They would get into it, and then you would hear from them in like 3 to 6 months. Hey, can you help us? We can't do this or that, or we need to accomplish something. And we ended up doing consulting, and it became apparent people need help managing stuff in the cloud. And so that was something we always toyed with, but actively started really pursuing over the past couple of years. And it's really come a long ways. Like I said, I came from a managed service provider, and
Mm-hmm.
at that place, I only sat on the professional services side. I mean, I could look over across the office and see a full-on knock with dashboards and people in cubicles, as you imagine, phones ringing all the time,
Right.
supporting a lot of customers. And I was like, oh boy, that's a road to head down. Like, you could build something like that specifically around supporting customers' cloud infrastructure, but what does it look like? And how is it similar and how is it different? And Stratum's kind of on this journey right now where we have a growing, solid managed services cloud. It's cloud operations that supports customers, and it's fantastic. And it's just in that growth process right now where we have all the fundamentals there, and we're doing the same thing that we're doing on the professional services side. It's in that maturity model where we're getting it done. Now, how do you drive to standardize? How do you, and this is the thing, when you do your first like 5 or 10 customers coming in through, you're going to try to do it almost one at a time and do it in a unique manner each time. And now we're at that point where, okay, maybe on customer, the next one, let's actually just try to stick to a process and try to see how much of the stuff we've used in the past we can just standardize template and apply. And we're kind of learning where you can and cannot do that. And I think the efficiency is just starting to really show its face. And we're hitting that stride where we're starting to get into things where if from far away you can tell that this is a traditional, no kidding, service and support team, and it's really happening. It's
Mm-hmm.
just so interesting because you picture that kind of a support team in a traditional sense, answering phones, emails, helping end users with their Outlook doesn't load or their Microsoft account won't let them log in. We're taking that to like the highest technology that you can get, right? the highest cloud-based technologies, you have people calling in that are saying like, hey, my content delivery network profile in Azure, I need to optimize it. How? And that's the kind of standard ticket that you get in. So it's interesting because it from far away kind of looks like a traditional managed services, but in the fact that it's a cloud operations team, um, it's very different in what the day-to-day looks like. So that's kind of the focus over time. I think we've gotten and maintained very good at professional services, and it continues to evolve and get better, and adding new technologies. But now we're like in that mid-life cycle where we're hitting efficiencies and doing cloud operations and supporting
Right.
customers, and that's kind of what's exciting to me now. What I think over the next year, Stratum is really going to grow. I think that's the growth path, and I'm kind of excited for it. So.
Thank you for watching Stratum's Cloud Interrupted. If you like what you see, please subscribe, like, and share this video.